That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that big one.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to the BAM Pod. I'm your host, Big Ed, and on the line tonight, we have got it done. A guy who has gone out and done something that nobody else has done. He has won back-to-back tournaments on the BAM Trail, and that man is right here with us, Colby Pearson. Welcome into the show, my friend.
Thanks. Really appreciate you having me on again.
Hey, man, you keep winning, we keep having you on. That's how it's going to work. I guess if we get to talk to you 4 times this year, it'd be good, right? Maybe 5.
That's the goal. Definitely showing up to win, fishing every event to try to put it away, and going good so far. Got a stacked field, so I'm blessed every time I get the opportunity to do it, and just thankful to have done it twice.
Well, we talked last time, and it was about, you said some things that I think were just amazing. You changed a lot of things about not only the way you look at tournament fishing, but the way you approached it mentally, physically, the food you eat, the way you reacted to it, the way you addressed your job. You gave somebody up and said, hey, I'm not giving up on my dream. I'm going fishing. Keep the job. I'll be back when I get back, if I get back. And it has seemed to really pay off for you. Has that been a major thing in your life, right now, just going, you know what, that was a great decision I made?
Oh, yeah, man. I really think that putting a little bit of doubt out in the universe kind of stalled me out a little bit. It was kind of like a skeleton in the closet. I didn't really know was there, and it just kind of was me always doubting myself and kind of allowing myself the permission to keep chasing my dreams, as hard as I possibly can. Not only motivated me to, like you mentioned, get some other aspects of my life, in check and focused, and really hold myself accountable to perform as an athlete. I don't always view fishing as like a physical sport, right? Nothing like that, but it definitely is tasking. It's a lot of labor. We have long hours, sometimes 14, 15-hour days. We're up at 2:33 in the morning. We got to tow long distances. We got to fish all day, stay mentally, relevant and focused on the goal at hand. And it really asks a lot of us. So in a lot of aspects, we are an athlete. I started treating myself and my body kind of in that aspect too. And, it's helped insurmountably, and it's just been good, man. And it's been a lot of work. It's been a long journey to get to this point, and I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad to keep progressing.
Yeah, watching this happen both times on the Pro Tour, one of the things you say in there is, that it's a stacked field, and it truly is. I mean, these are some of the best anglers we have to offer on the West Coast right now. They are amazing guys to watch. Their attitudes, the way they approach these tournaments. I mean, we were on Mark Pilgrim's home water, right? I mean, this was his home water, and to come out, and he still went out and brought the crowds, brought the people. We had great stuff there, but to see his approach to it, I know that when we had talked to you in the last episode, you were talking about how this body of water was one that you were really looking forward to for a couple reasons. One, it's a very difficult body of water to fish, and it's something we're going to get into. And the other one was that, you kind of had that little redemption thing. I've been so close. I want to win this thing. And you've done that now. You have accomplished 2 things this year that I think we're like, I don't want to say on your bucket list, kind of things, I guess, but maybe they were, beat Almanor, and win a champion. Well, you've done that twice now. You've been a champion. You're now a 2-time champ, and you've beaten Almanor. I mean, is that it? Just give it up and go home now? You've accomplished everything you got, or what do you got next?
No, definitely you could say they're bucket list items. I've kind of had like a little bit of a vendetta against Almanor just because I've had some good finishes there, but I've also had some bad finishes there, and it's a fishery that stumped me before. So it means a lot to have been able to win at Almanor. I was leading Pro-Am in 2020 on the Columbia River, and I lost it on the final day. And so that one means a lot to me too, you know, so I'm really excited to get the opportunity to go up there for our next event. And yeah, that's the one I want next. So luckily we get an opportunity to go there. You know, I'll be rolling the dice and putting everything I have into it. And I've found that, you know, sometimes everything you have is everything that it takes. And I'm just ready to test the theory, you know?
Yeah, our next event is Boardman, Oregon. Now I'm guessing, and I'm only guessing, but this could be one of the shortest drives you have all season.
Yeah, actually Almanor is the closest. It's only
Oh,
about
it is?
4 hours from my house.
Okay.
Where Boardman, a lot of people kind of like think I'm synonymous with the Columbia River, which is always funny. It is the only event we have in the regular season in Oregon. And we've been there a few times in different venues and different circuits in the past. So, and I've had good finishes there. A lot of people think I live there. Boardman's about 7 hours from my house. So it's definitely
Okay.
still a really long haul. I'm from the Northwest. I fished a good amount of tournaments on the Columbia River, so I am familiar, but I'm by no means a local. But I am excited to get up there. I'd say, you know, in my back pocket is smallmouth bass. I spend all my
Yeah.
time fishing for smallmouth. I love those things, you
Yeah.
know, so I've always felt super confident in any event that had smallmouth, and I've oftentimes opted to chase smallmouth in events that maybe would be dominated with largemouth and still had pretty relevant finishes. So I'm really confident fishing for smallies. I love it when I get the opportunity to do so, and we're just super fortunate that we get another chance to go chase a generally smallmouth fishery and try to bring some of those things back to weigh-in, man. It's kind of just I live for those things.
Well, you know, and that's basically where I wanted to start this show, or not start the show off, but that's one of the topics I wanted to hit on this was, you know, we just were up at Almanor, and it's, you know, that's fishing at altitude. I mean, that's a different. You have to look into when those fish are spawning, when they're reacting to it, because it is such an altitude, such a higher altitude than what most lakes. I feel like most people fish, and fishing for smallmouth up there. You know, I don't know what Boardman is. I haven't looked into it as far as altitude or what it's not. I know it's a river system and that sort of thing that we're basically fishing one of the pools up there. And but I thought, you know, it's an interesting topic to talk about fishing for smallmouth at altitude like that. How much difference does it make compared to, I guess, fishing for maybe more lowland areas, and you know, for smallmouth? Are they a different? Do they react different? Do they act different? I know when we were up there, guys were talking about they were fishing for them pre-spawn, post-spawn, and spawn. So that's a kind of an interesting theory of when we were there. You know what we were looking for. How do you go about fishing for those smallmouth specifically when they are at altitude like that?
Yeah, so I'm super fortunate living in Southern Oregon because where I lack tournament fisheries, where there's not a lot of big events around me, I
Mhm.
make up for in a multitude of different fisheries at different elevations. So
Hmm.
where I live outside of Medford, Oregon, it's about 1,500 feet elevation. So it's relatively low, kind of just your standard situation. That being said, I can drive an hour in any direction and I can access fisheries that are 1,000 foot elevation, pretty much at sea level towards the coast. I can go fish
Mm.
lakes that are 5,000, even 5,500 feet elevation. So the first time I ever went to Almanor, which would have been back in about 2021, I felt so comfortable being there because I have some lakes near me that are 5,000 foot elevation smallmouth fisheries, just like Almanor.
Hmm.
So I always felt really comfortable there. They definitely do act different at the higher elevation fisheries. These fisheries, obviously, they're a lot colder. They're a lot more subjective to have snow melt and really cold runoff well into, say, May into early June. And they behave at Almanor very similar to the fisheries here back home. So I was really familiar with it. I know what kind of banks they like. I know where they generally go to spawn and when. And you'll find at those 5,000 foot elevation fisheries, it pushes the spawn back about 2 to 4 weeks into the next kind of moon phase after what anglers would be experiencing in other fisheries. So where smallmouth around me typically spawn the second to third week of April in the valley fisheries, when I go up to those 5,000 footers, it's about the last week of May, first week or two of June.
Hmm.
So going down to Almanor, I really anticipated that would have been the case, that we would have a mix of spawn and pre-spawn, but I definitely knew we'd probably have some post-spawn fish too. And that was the case. I know for a fact some of the fish that I put on the score tracker or brought to weigh in were post spawn fish, and I know for a fact some of them were pre spawn fish too. The main difference at elevation is the fish are going to have a little bit of a shorter, growing or feeding season. A lot of these fisheries will freeze, at least temporarily. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them to feed up. They kind of come out of the thaw, I guess, into early spring, really voracious in feeding. And then they tend to be a little bit more aggressive. I know this can be the case at Almanor, although it's not what we've witnessed the last few times we've had a professional event there. I think the amount of pressure just tends to crumble the fishery in terms of quality. So you might be able to go out there and have a fun fishing day and catch 18 or 20, 21 pounds, with some relative ease. There's a lot of 4 to 4.5 pounders in Almanor. That being said, when you put 30, 50, 60 boats on their heads, those fish know it, and man, they shut down and get hard to catch. So there is some differences, mostly seasonality. Higher elevation fish do tend to be a little bit more aggressive, but it just depends on pressure because they're not used to getting those boats on their heads. And as soon as you put them on top of them, they definitely shut down.
Well, let me ask you this. What going in there, you just said, you were kind of expecting pre-spawn, post-spawn, and some, or spawn and post-spawn. What was I guess your baits, your tactics? What was it that you were going to go after it with? Was it a bait fish kind of thing? And what's in that lake? What did you feel like those fish were keying in on?
Yeah, so being very, very familiar with smallmouth, I know that they will not, as a species, overlook a crayfish as long as
Mhm.
crayfish are available, and I know that they're available. So that was definitely something I always have in my back pocket. I was throwing a mix of crawdad crankbaits and small crayfish imitations, and really that kind of bolstered a lot of my limits. I would catch 1 or 2 key fish a day on a crayfish imitation. And then the other major forage in Almanor is pond smell, or like a Japanese wakasagi is what they're referred to. And they're just a small silver fish. They almost look like a little needle. They're only about a half an inch tall, and they're maybe 3 to 4 inches long. They're a very, very hard bait fish to imitate because most of the bass lures we utilize are significantly larger than a pond smelt tends to be. So really what I was doing is the last about 3 years, I've kind of fished Almanor casually here and there, maybe once or twice a year. I've always felt like I didn't have any baits in my tackle box that really resembled the pond smelt perfectly or would trigger those smallmouth into reacting. So I did go down to Almanor in pre-practice before the cutoff, so well over a month in advance of the event. And I spent the entirety of 2 days just figuring out what baits the fish would eat, essentially. Where typically in pre-practice, I like to look around, I like to graph, I like to find different areas that hold fish. I've never had problem finding fish at Almanor. I've always had problem figuring out baits that they would eat. So kind of what I came up with was a homemade, highly modified minnow imitation soft plastic that, through a few years of trial and error, I finally figured out something that they would react to, and I found it in pre-practice. And I told a couple of my friends, like, I feel really confident if this deal is still going, it's going to be a hard deal to beat. So super fortunate that it ended up working out. It was a really high maintenance tactic. I pretty much could catch 1 fish per bait, and then I would have to essentially sit down on the boat and get out the pliers and super glue and get everything dialed in and balanced just right. And it's an incredibly technical fishery, and they were incredibly technical fish to catch. But that's really my strong suit. I've never felt so in my own lane in a bass tournament before because I love tinkering with lures. I love experimenting with different bait dynamics underwater. So the fact that I got to kind of take my ADHD brain and apply it to different strategies to catch these things, man, it's just like I couldn't ask for a more perfect storm for me. And a lot of times in tournaments, me going off on a big mental adventure tweaking baits isn't always that advantageous. Although at Almanor, it did work out, and I'm super duper stoked on it.
Yeah, let me you said just a quick word in there, weather. Uh, and I think it's very interesting this year that we had. Okay, so in the past, Apex has been up there, and we've had, let's see, snowstorms, earthquakes. There's been some extreme events, and this year, I don't know that we could have asked for anything more perfect, weather-wise. I mean, a touch of a breeze, a little bit of a wind coming through, maybe a slight little cloud coming in there to keep it a little bit cooler. It wasn't overly hot, but it wasn't so cold. I mean, I don't feel like first thing in the morning guys were freezing out there to get on the water. How did you feel that like affected your fishing at all this year? Was it just like, you know what, this is beautiful and we love this is what we're looking for, or was it you wanted it more nasty up there? How was that as far as this year goes? Tell a new fish story with Garmin EchoMap Ultra 2 chart plotters in 10 and 12-inch models featuring traditional clear view, side view sonar. Heard about Garmin's live scope, live scanning sonar? EchoMap Ultra 2 is compatible with that also. You can even capture your favorite and best fish catches with the new screen recording feature. What more could you want? How about built-in Garmin Navionics, inland and coastal mapping? Wireless networking? Check and check. EchoMap Ultra 2. Check it out at Garmin.com or shop your local Garmin dealer.
Yeah, so in terms of desirable conditions to catch those fish, I think myself as well as most people to have a high numbers day would have preferred more wind, maybe a little more clouds, some sort of condition, because there was periods of time during the event where it was slick calm, and I don't even mean a lick of wind. The whole lake was just like sheet glass. And in those windows, the fish were not active. They were not biting. So a lot of guys were bed fishing, especially guys in the top 10. Perfect conditions for that. Although I was just out there fishing, I didn't sight fish a fish. I didn't knowingly target a bed fish. I would have had I seen one that just wasn't my pattern, and it wasn't something I even invested any time in at all. So for bed fishing, excellent conditions. That being said, super stable, a little bit of breeze here and there throughout the day. It worked really well in my favor because I felt like I had lures and I was on a pattern that I could end up getting bites, even though sometimes it was only a bite an hour, a bite every 2 hours. I felt really confident I could still get them to bite if I presented to enough fish, and I felt really confident I could fish behind guys or around guys and still have a really strong advantage, showing them such a unique technique. So the weather was good. For me, it did work in my favor because it made the conditions honestly tougher. The fish were about as hard as I've ever seen them to catch. Multiple guys had 1, 2, 3 fish, and I feel for those guys because I saw how delicate the bite was and how easy that would have happened. You know, I could see struggling. I could see catching 1 or 2 fish. In fact, on day 2, I ran into Ken Ma at about noon. And, you know, we were sharing an area real close to each other, easily talking distance at normal volume. And, you know, he's like, how's it going? I'm like, man, Ken, I only have 1. You know, and I had a strong day 1. I think I had 11 scoreable fish and a nice limit. So at noon, only having 1 fish, it was really hard for me to stay mentally in the game, especially because I lost 3 really nice ones early in the day. I try not to dwell on those. You know, Ken sticks a fish in front of me, says, hey, man, I know how hard that is to see. You know, stay in the game. I said, Ken, the only person in my way today is me. As soon as I figure it out, man, I'm just going to, you know, keep chipping away, and I still feel good about this. And I left that area and ended up catching about 7 more scoreable. So it was such a grind. I went 6 hours on day 2 and I only landed 1 fish. So I get it. I feel for those guys who didn't produce. I'm just really fortunate that I had some baits that I could get those fish to commit to.
Yeah, that's pretty, you know, that's just awesome to hear. You know, you're getting that confidence in yourself that way. You know, it was how I know that down, you know, coming out of Yuma, Arizona, you're talking about a largemouth fishery exclusively. I don't think there's any smallmouth in it that I know of or heard of in there really, you know, on a major basis. And then you come back up here and you got to go back to smallmouth, which I know is your favorite and your specialty and that sort of thing. So it's very amazing to watch this, you know, you turn that on, go down there, do so well, win that event, come back up here, win this event up here now. Now we're heading to Boardman. You're going to be back up on a smallmouth fishery. And one that I feel is more a traditional smallmouth fishery. Like you're in a river system, you're dealing with, not I don't want to say tides like normal tides like I think of, but you know, you're still dealing with a river system flowing out there. And I feel like that's more traditional smallmouth. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. The Columbia River is what a smallmouth bass is bred for, born for, adapted to over the history of the species. Smallmouth are native to the rivers of the northeastern United States, typically slow to moderately fast moving current. They're visual feeders, very aggressive, very fast. They have big tails, they're lean. So you look at the Columbia River, this place is made for smallmouth, and you get to go chase them in their element. And it's so fun to fish up there, man. I really enjoy it.
Do you have any predictions on what you feel like you're going to be doing up there?
Yeah, I think that in terms of, in the pro tour, so the end of July, I
Yeah.
think anything in the 15.5 to 16.5 pound range is
Okay.
going to be a very solid bag. I think we're going to see that kind of transition to guys getting top 10s. As far as keeper count goes, man, sky's the limit. The last time we were
Really?
there, I think, for a different circuit, I had, I think, 74, 75 scoreable fish in 2 days. And it was in the springtime. So if guys could find schools of fish in the summertime that are stronger than that, I would not be surprised if someone could get triple digit scoreable bass and things of that nature. So if the bite's good, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be so fun. There's going to be top water. There's going to be, you can throw plastics, drop shots, any smallmouth, relative lure is going to be productive up there. And it's just going to be a blast. And then on the final day, if someone cracks a really good pattern, we're going to see an upper teens bag, maybe even a 20-pound bag, depending on the conditions and what they end up running into. I mean, there's a few greenfish up there. A guy could maybe run into a big one and have a huge bag. So it's going to be so interesting to get up there, and definitely looking forward to it. The field's going to love it, and it's always a blast to fish in, Oregon and Washington.
Well, you came on this and, talking earlier about we talked a little bit about some of your dreams of heading back east, getting on the big tours and, making a name for yourself that way, growing your brand, getting, and that's a dream for a lot of guys, and the question I have to ask here is that with, the BAM trail out here now, the vision that Mark has had on this, has that changed at all for you as far as like, I got to get on the big tours back east? Or do you feel like this might be a home for you? Like staying out west, trying to make a living here, trying to make it on this tour or any other tour and make a living at it?
Yeah, I like that question. I'm glad you asked it. I honestly think that the projected pay scales and field size that we're looking at next year and going forward,
Mhm.
that the BAM trail is going to enable guys to start taking their fishing career out west really, really seriously. There's been kind of some murmurs and some talk of getting this pay scale into the $50,000 range if we can get enough boats and build
Right.
this thing into the grand mechanism we want it to be. And I really feel like it can be that. At all these events, I see the staff, they're really just busting their tail, whether it's tournament director Michael Bray, Mark Lassane, yourself, Thomas out there filming, right? These guys are so invested in this platform. I cannot see it failing at this point in time. And I know the anglers are starting to align with that as well. Once we get this thing 50 plus boats, we're going to be talking about some seriously big money, some seriously big contingencies, and the platform's already there. The media, the contacts that Mark has in the industry in conjunction with the magazine, it's the best resources that I've ever seen in a fishing platform out west. So what BAM brings to the table is career viability for a Western angler such as myself, where I've always aspired to move back east. I still want to, because I think I owe it to myself to follow through on my dreams. I want to fish nationally. I want to explore. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to fish against Brandon Poliniks and Cody Myers and, Jacob Wheelers and Dustin Connells and all those guys someday. And that means a lot to me. So I'll do it. I'm just going to say, I'll do it someday. I will figure it out. That's just me believing in myself and my goals and my tenacity and diligence. I'm going to accomplish that goal. But BAM is providing an epic opportunity for me to have a real fishing career on the West Coast. And essentially, it's given me the platform to buy myself off the West Coast. I don't come from money or resources. I've worked my tail off my whole adult life. I've I've always had a job. From the time I started a job, I've never had a day where I was, personally like unemployed. I've always just grinded to try to accomplish my goals. So for me, I want to fish nationally. I love it. BAM has given me the opportunity to fish my way off this coast, and it's also affording guys the opportunity to fish as a career out west. As soon as we get where we're going, this thing is going to be so big. So if you're listening out there, be proactive, get involved with these things, get familiar. It might be something that interests you, and you don't want to be the guy who's watching from the couch when they go fish your home lake and some guy's walking off stage with a $50,000 check. Promise you don't want to be that guy. So definitely check out what we have going on, because this is going to be a really big deal.
Yeah, because we're going up your way. And like you said, you're still 7 hours from it, so it's not your home water, and I won't say that, but it is, getting out of California, and we're hitting the West Coast. The West Coast is big, it's huge. People don't understand quite how big it is, how much California really takes up, and then you get into Oregon, you get into Washington, you get into Arizona, and those sort of things. And now I'm looking at it going, there are some amazing events, but we're spreading out. And I don't, the Pro Tour is what the Pro Tour is. You have to be invited, you have to make your way into it, that sort of thing. But the Pro-Ams, if you're sitting at home and you're listening to this show, come out and fish it. This is your opportunity to be on your home water, on your area, in your state, in your whatever. Come be a part of the Pro-Ams, even if it's just for one event, just so you can get a taste and a feel for what we bring. I think that's amazing. And I think that, hey, go out there and try to beat a guy like Colby. He wants to come out. He's out there. He's proven what he can do. So, come out there and show what you got and see if you can beat him too. I mean, there's a bunch of names on this, the fish, both of them that fish the Pro-Ams and the Pro Tour. But I think the Pro Tour is definitely going to be where it's going to be, hopefully, in the future. I think that's what we're focusing on, and that's what we're going to try to grow to be. I personally would love to see us compete with a Bassmaster or an MLF. I think we have the opportunity to do that. I think the format that you're fishing, which is another topic I really wanted to talk about, was the format out there. The keeper count and the overall weight. People, I think, are so used to seeing, like a style that MLF does, where it's, every fish counts, in certain ways, and other ones where it's more traditional, where just weight counts. I've talked to you guys before, and I know you like this format. Is it still something that you feel is a positive in this sport right now?
I'm not biased by being affiliated. I promise everybody listening that's the case. This is the best format for bass fishing, I think. It's the best of both worlds. You're going to get keepers. You're going to get 5 fish bags. You're going to have the drama of a 5 fish limit, where if you catch a 7-pounder, it's not just 3 2-pounders and a 1-pounder. It's a 7, and it might be a 5-pound cull, right? So when you have a 5 fish bag, the bigger fish you can catch is your kicker or multiple kickers. It just intensifies. Where if you're just catching numbers, some guys would go catch 10 2-pounders and have 20 pounds, but I'd rather go catch 2 7s. To me, that's kind of cooler. You know what I mean?
Right.
At the end of the day, 5 fish at 2 pounds is 10, 2 at 7 is 14. So it's kind of a bummer in that aspect, because I want to see guys fish for 7-pounders. The BAM Trail is the only hybrid format that I know of that really values not only a guy who's smashing keepers, but also catching big fish too. And it's so fun to fish. I just hope everybody gets the opportunity to get out there and try to see the format and kind of go and perform underneath it. Because, I love trophy hunting. I love fishing for giant fish and big swim baits. It's just what makes my gears turn. If someone was to go to my Instagram, it's just all a bunch of big swim bait fish, and I love that and do it for fun. But at the end of the day, sometimes in these tournaments, I can go swing for the fences and it doesn't work out in a little bit, and I end up getting on a pattern like I did at Martinez, where I kept 16 or so fish on a spinnerbait. So it's really fun. It's so engaging. On the fly, you have to make the adjustments, and you have to make the calculated decisions to say, hey, I'm all in on keepers, or I'm all in on weight. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the day, you have 10 keepers and you have a small limit, but then you catch a 7-pounder, and then you got to make another decision that says, hey, maybe I need to go chase weight. So as the angler out there performing, there's so much stress on us to be making the right calculated decision, because the clock's ticking from the minute that we leave the 5-mile-an-hour buoys. So making those decisions on the fly, super engaging. I think it's the best format for bass fishing. I think it's going to be the most engaging for the fans once they start to kind of understand what we're doing out there and get more engaged with it. And I honestly think it's the future of the sport, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning to the BAM Pod tonight. I hope you're enjoying the show. But right now, we're going to take a commercial break and talk to you a little bit about Excel Marketing LLC. They're your local TV expert, and they have something to tell you about Dish TV. If technology, value, and customer satisfaction are important to you, then it's time to cut the cable cord once and for all. Upgrade your TV experience and start saving with Dish today. Call Excel Marketing LLC at 209-542-4129 or visit them on the web at excel.getdish.com. They're Excel Marketing LLC, your locally owned, operated, and trusted satellite TV experts. Now, back to the BAM Pod.
Yeah, speaking of fans, the BAM Trail first ever episode came out of Lake Martinez. You down there laying the smackdown on some, getting that first championship out of the way. How'd you enjoy the show, or have you watched it yet?
Yeah, I was actually waiting in queue for it to be released at 7 o'clock the other night, and I was so impressed with the footage, man. I'm used to some other circuits that we had some televised footage, and they were like 20, 22 minutes, almost like a clip, and you kind of get a little bit of a feel, but you're confused. You don't really know what's going on. It doesn't really tell the storyline. So impressed to see the BAM show has a 1 hour long show available on YouTube. You don't even have to record it on your DVR or nothing like that. You go to YouTube, go to link, you can view it anytime. I can show my coworkers, I can show my boss, I can say, hey, this is what I do when I'm not here. I can show my friends. Just an insane amount of media, the amount of coverage that I got and the other anglers got for their sponsors and marketability. I mean, this is going to be such a big deal. I mean, the writing's on the wall. 1 hour coverage of fishing in the West. We have not had that since the early 2000s when they were filming the EverStart series.
Right.
So we got it going again. We got magazines. We got TV footage. It's an hour-long show. We have expert videographers that know how to get the content we need to deliver. These guys are experienced, Thomas has been doing this since the inception of pro tours in the West. And the dude is getting better and better every year, and he's phenomenal. He knows what questions to ask when he's interviewing. He knows what angles to get when we're fishing, and he knows how to really capture the drama, and the editors know how to tell the story. So it's all I could have asked for. Super surprised, super impressed. I can't wait to see the footage from Almanor.
Yeah, I know. That was my first take on it was when I looked at it, I go, the cinematography on this is awesome. I mean, Martinez shined for sure. Just being down in Arizona, I put up a couple clips on my Instagram and people were like, wow, that's beautiful out there. That's amazing. That place looks crazy good. And I've got to say it was. I mean, it was beautiful down there. It was something totally different than I've ever seen. And it was an amazing thing. And I'm in the boat with you on that one. Almanor should be breathtaking. That place in life is breathtaking. You go up there, it's one of my favorite places to go, one of my favorite lakes to be on, and it is beautiful. I can't even imagine the shots they're going to get. Mark being in the boat. I mean, this is not, you can watch. I turned to watch some of the other shows just so I could see, it's like, hey, what can we do? What can we change? How can we do this? And I was really impressed the way that it ended up being. Tweaks, of course, there's going to be tweaks that need to be made. It's the first one, but I think that the next event at Almanor coming up and being on TV is going to be amazing to watch. It should be great. If you haven't seen it, go to the BAM Trail on YouTube, and you can sit in your own house on your big giant screen TV, turn on YouTube, turn on the show, and watch it. It is absolutely a great show to watch. I think they highlighted you very well. I think they highlighted Zach Thompson, got some good coverage for sure. I mean, there was a lot of guys out there that got good coverage. It was a tougher one. I think Almanor is going to be better that way because with Martinez, there was like I don't think we even saw Ish Monroe on there once, but the guy was running like 30 miles to go to his fishing spots, so they weren't exactly following him. So in the future, we got some other things. Hopefully, we'll get some some GoPro footage and that sort of thing. But I think this show is going to be good. I think it's going to be something that we've needed on the West Coast, and I'm glad to watch you be a part of it. And it should be fun watching you win up at Almanor.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I mean, one thing I've been doing every event is I'm running a GoPro. I set it into high quality, video. So that way all my fish catches are on video, so I can relay some of that media back to Thomas. They can put it into the program. It helps me, helps my sponsors, helps the organization get a little bit more, ability to tell the story. Some of the fish I caught, that was off my GoPro, and that's just something I wanted to do to pay it forward and make sure I'm capturing that media, not only on behalf of myself, but to give the trail an opportunity to use it in favorability to tell the story. You know what I mean? So yeah, I recommend that to guys fishing the circuit. And I know we'll have more camera guys and more cameras available in the future, but in the meantime, I couldn't have been more pleased with the show. And it's real Western fishing. I think it rivals most any fishing show I've really ever seen. So I'm stoked on it, man. It's really good.
Yeah. Just talking about that whole, the Western fishing right now. And, we've talked about some of the stuff that's coming up. We got some more smallmouth fishing coming up here with back-to-back events. So now a pro tour and a pro-am coming up, both in the Boardman area. And, so we're gonna be fishing. I think there's two different pools are going out of, is what I've been told. I've never been there myself, so it's going to be a nice experience for me to go up there and see them. I actually leave this Friday. We're going to take all the trailers and things up, and one of the trailers up and do some things, and I get to see some other bodies of water. It should be a lot of fun. Going forward with this, we've got California coming back on that, and we've got places like I don't know, what's it called, Clear Lake. We've got the Delta still to go. We've got Berryessa. So we've got some more bodies of water that are going to have some big fish. Are you ready to get out there and start slinging some of those swim baits? And are you going to be able to at the time of year? I mean, I know the guys don't really know how swim baits work, all the way. And it's one of those things that guys like yourself who really put the time in is, August, September, October, is that an okay time to be throwing swim baits?
Yeah, swim baits are a broad blanket terminology for any bait fish imitating lure, typically of size. So realistically on the Pro Tour, the next three events are Boardman, Columbia River, Thermalito Afterbay, as well as the Championship of the California Delta. So all of those fisheries have large fish. I mean, the Columbia probably has 8-pound smallmouth in it, right? So there's giants in there. I have some nice largemouth, northern strain largemouth, 6, 7, 8-pounders. Thermalito probably has double-digit largemouth if I had to guess. And the Delta is loaded with double-digit largemouth. So they're all upper-class largemouth or smallmouth fisheries. Anytime you're fishing around upper-class bass, you're going to have fish that are eating large profile bait fish. So I anticipate I'll probably be weighing in some big swim bait fish in all the next events for the rest of the year, regardless of seasonality, because big fish eat other fish. That's all there is to it. You just got to make some revisions in what sort of lures you're presenting to them. But if you want to catch a kicker, you got to tie on a big bait. And if you're going to win the next three events, you're going to have a kicker. So it's a really great, route to get you to that end goal.
Yeah, I saw you down in, at the Yuma event, and people will see that when they watch the show. You were throwing what was the bait you were throwing? It was a swim bait down there. What was that one called?
Yeah, so the one in that clip was a KGB. It's called a Chad Shad. And it's my buddy Kevin's company, and we've been friends for 10, 15 years, maybe more, since the swim bait forums and things like that on the internet. And I was testing prototypes for him when I was just a teenager, and he was just making baits in his garage type deal, and now he's blown up into a huge swim bait manufacturer, super prolific and very sought after. So just a small glide bait, and I anticipate, with the Columbia, that could be good. I anticipate the Thermalito, that can be good, and some other topwater swim baits and things. And then same thing at the Delta, man. We got a really good schedule this year, and I can't wait honestly, I can't wait to go largemouth fishing. I love smallmouth fishing, but I'm not that picky. At the end of the day, I love to punch and flip and throw buzz baits and all that stuff.
Well, I was going to say, you're talking about there's some big fish. There's 6 and 7, 8-pound smallmouth possibly in the Columbia, but nothing beats setting that hook on a punch bait or on a big swim bait, and that's a 10+ pound fish, and you're just, that's a largemouth. You're talking largemouth at that point, and that's just one of those things where I think everybody gets excited, and that's what they all think about. And, talking about that just a little bit, because we're getting into this time of the year, it's summer. Things are starting to heat up. The water's going to get warmer. Maybe we should talk and give something out there to the guys that are getting ready to go out right now, because this is when I think a lot of people want to go fishing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the lake. I'm going to take the family. We're going to go do this, but maybe I'll go fishing first. This time of year, give me a little bit of a pro angler's approach to it, and what you would take out there if you were the average guy just going out there, taking his kids fishing and going out and wanting to catch some big fish this time of year. What would you be doing?
Yeah, definitely. So summertime, we're going to be looking at some 100-degree days. Typically, when the temperatures get up around triple digits, I really like fishing in the mornings and in the evenings. That middle of the day bite can be fun, can be productive. You can make some revisions. That's a good time to go punch, when those fish really suck up underneath those mats and get underneath that shade, get underneath docks, things like that. But in the mornings in the summertime, a lot of times those fish recognize that as an ideal bite window for them to get out there before the dog days of summer, 100-degree heats on their back. So getting out there early in lakes like Clear Lake, the Delta, core largemouth fisheries, and fishing buzz baits, topwater baits, things of that nature, a swim jig, chatter baits, even sometimes fishing a crankbait really fast can get some good reaction bites early in the morning. More towards the middle of the day, like I said, flip that grass, punch the grass, get into some shade lines underneath some willow trees, maybe fish some docks. Any vertical structure is always good. Bridge pilings, especially favoring the shadier sides in reservoirs, is an excellent choice. And then same thing in the afternoon, go throw a walking bait, a super spook, or a gunfish, Berkeley Chopo, or a whopper popper for that matter. All really good. Anytime you have overhead cover, whether it's cheese mats or duckweed or matted vegetation, throw that frog on top of there. Those fish like to get underneath there. It's one of my favorite things to do, man. As far as the smallmouth goes, smallmouth are generally a pretty shallow water fish, so I don't usually necessarily fish them all too deep. If there is availability of like an inflow or some running water, a lot of times I will catch them around that moving water. Say if a reservoir, mountain reservoir like Trinity has a tributary coming in, get up in some of that moving water, find some cooler water. Those smallmouth a lot of times like to get up in there. Tough to beat small swim baits for smallmouth. And if they're not eating that, they'll definitely eat a tube. That's the nice thing about smallmouth is you don't have to have a million lures to target them. They're always eating crawdads and they're always eating bait fish. So for a largemouth, I like to throw a bunch of different things. Largemouth's going to eat a red-winged blackbird, and they're going to eat a dragonfly, and then they're going to swim over here and eat a bluegill, and then they're going to go eat a baby striper, right? Smallmouth are a little bit more one-dimensional, at least in most of the fisheries. I mean, they'll eat some little bugs and things, but crawdads, small fish, you can keep it pretty basic. But yeah, early and late, lower temperature, lower light, throw some topwaters. You're going to catch all species of bass. Favor shade if you can find it. If you got grass, throw a frog, punch, throw a buzzbait, go have the time of your life. They eat all summer. The hotter the water, the higher the metabolism. So no matter how hot it gets, they're probably still going to be feeding. I only really notice that bites start to drop off when the water gets in the upper 80s into the 90s. Then you really might try to go night fishing or capitalize on that. Like I said, morning bite maybe is going to be a better bet. So summer fishing is a great opportunity. Best time to get kids out there fishing. They're going to catch good numbers, and it's going to be a great time. So no reason to quit fishing just because it's summertime and it's hot.
Well, we've talked about smallmouth at altitude. We've talked about the show. We've talked about the BAM trail. We've talked about, some summertime fishing now, and these are all some wise words from an angler who is definitely making his way up here. He's been a solid angler for so long, and now he's a champion. And I want to talk before we end this show for sure. I want to talk right about that topic. What does it feel like right now to not only go down to Martinez, put all the work in, put in the effort, change your whole lifestyle and do it once, but now you've done it twice against the best in the West, man. Tell us a little bit about how that makes you feel right there.
We're going to take a short commercial break and talk to you about one of our great sponsors, StoreQuest Self-Storage. They're here to help you get your garage back. As an outdoor enthusiast, you have gear, lots of expensive gear, equipment, boats, trailers, and vehicles, probably all stored in your garage. You need a storage space that's easy to access, secure, and climate controlled. And that's where StoreQuest comes in. Head over to storequest.com. Plus, members receive an exclusive 10% discount with the offer code BAM10. That's BAM 10. StoreQuest is the official self-storage partner of the BAM Tournament Trail. Now, back to the BAM Pod.
You know, it makes me feel great. And the reason that it makes me feel great and it's amazing is because I respect the anglers I'm fishing against so much. You know, I've been fishing bass tournaments for 20 years. I started when I was 10 in competitions. I was a co-angler in a bass club. I had to beg guys to, hey, would you take me out on your boat, mister, please? I promise I can catch fish and I'll mind my manners, you know, things like that. I have all my own gear. I don't need to use all your Cincos and things, which was probably a lie. But, you know, I started from such a grassroots level, and I, you know, went to high school and fished in high school. And then I went to college and just studied, and I got a job and I fished more regional. And then finally I had a 1997 Skeeter. I started fishing pro-ams. I had to borrow all the rods in the boat. I didn't even own rods because I was so strapped for money, but I loved to fish. Put all my money on an entry fee. Sometimes I wouldn't cut a check. I'd have to sell my old Shimano Curados to pay my next entry fee and borrow rods again. And it's just crazy to come up, man. Like I said, my first boat I fished a pro-am in was a 97 Skeeter, and then I had a 2003 Triton, and then I got a used Ranger from my buddy, and you know, all these opportunities. And finally I got to work with a boat manufacturer, and I have deals and sponsors, and it just helps me so much that it only means as much as it means to me, because it's been such a long grind and road to get here. And during that whole process, I got to see guys like Greg Gutierrez winning pro-ams on Shasta, and I got to see Ish Monroe hooking 10-pounders at Amistad in the Elite Series on Tora tubes. And, you know, I got to see Jake Boomer fishing the NPFL, you know, and I got to meet friends like my really close friends, Nick Wood, you know, winning these other events and stuff, and Bill O'Shin fishing the Bassmaster Opens a while ago. And right, so all these guys are so tenured and so skilled that it means the world to me, because not only am I getting to fish alongside people who I respect to my core, but I know the caliber of anglers that they are. You know, Ken Ma, he won everything for like 2-3 years straight. He won everything.
Yeah.
You know, so I really respect these guys. They've been great mentors in my life. A lot of them have stepped up and coached me in times where maybe I wasn't aware of that I wasn't performing to the highest of my ability, whether it was fishing or marketing, speaking, accountability, you know, in that nature. So I appreciate these guys so much for teaching me so much about myself, teaching me so much about the industry. And that's why it means so much to me, is because I get to fish against guys I respect. Many of them have become my friends. A lot of them have become my mentors. It's the best opportunity I could ever ask for. I always felt that I knew I could win and I possessed something, and I know I had the passion and love for the sport. You know, so winning Martinez was validation, you know, and then winning Almanor was like, I just knew I could, you know. So I got to kick into that extra gear and hold myself accountable. There's a lot of times I could have spun out on the water, and I haven't been, and it's just been really focused and driven. The winning fish at Almanor, I caught it 153. And I think I had a 230 check-in, right? So we're getting down to the final minutes, and I have insane focus to try to still accomplish the task at hand, even if I'm not in the most desirable position to do so. Every cast counts, and as long as I have enough time to make 5, I'm going to make them count to the best of my ability. So it's amazing. You know, the whole experience has been phenomenal, and I'm thankful for the platform and the opportunity to go chase my dreams.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. You know, I get to be up there and I get to call your name out and announce you as the champ, and that for me, that's been fun. Absolutely watching these anglers come up here and just seeing how they are absolutely, like you talk about. I mean, Greg Gutierrez he's been doing this for a little while, and he still has this amazing passion for this. I can tell you right now that after you won this event, going over there and looking at Nick Wood's face, where he was just beaming, man, he was so proud. He was so happy. He was so, into, you winning this thing, making sure he got the right pictures, making sure he got the right, everything. It was amazing to see. And I think above all, and I know it's across the board, probably I've talked to guys all over the country, and I think just across the board, seeing the camaraderie in this sport, the brotherhood, the there's the passion that all these guys have. I just talked to Shaw Grigsby on another podcast that for the friend of mine puts out, and we're talking to him, and he's up there. He's been doing this, a couple years, and he's one of those guys, and he's still out there competing. Rick Clunn still coming up on the stage. I mean, I don't know of another sport where guys that have that much passion can do it for so long. So you being a nice young guy that you are, still with so much, your career, I can't wait to see how it plays out and how it goes and where you end up in life, because man, the way you're fishing, the passion you have, I'm just absolutely blown away. I mean, it's been fun to see everybody out there, but yeah, this was great. And Almanor, the show should be great. The fans when we went up there, and I'd love for you to talk on that just a second. Just give it that little. How was the fans? I mean, Yuma was great. Like, you saw the fans come out, but man, I couldn't believe what showed up at Almanor. It was crazy, and I hope that in the future people just keep hearing, keep seeing, and keep wanting to be out there. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was unprecedented, and it amazed me as well. I've been fishing professional events out west since 2018. And I've seen some big weigh-ins. I fished a lot of championships. I fished the Western Shootout that was in a giant emporium building in downtown Sacramento. Almanor was the biggest crowd I've seen at a bass tournament on the West Coast in my life. Yeah. And I bet you there was 200 spectators at that tournament. Unbelievable the amount of community support that part of Northern California can garner for a bass tournament. Before the event, we had our boats out there doing a meet and greet with the locals. I was handing out discount tackle gift cards to people who wanted to come over to me, talk fishing, and just the amount of community support in Almanor was amazing. We had 75 or 80 people at the weigh-in at Martinez, which was that was amazing. But
right.
200 fans and spectators who lived at Lake Almanor, fish Lake Almanor, love Lake Almanor, want to learn about fishing and want to support bass fishing in their community. That was the most impressive thing I've ever seen at a bass tournament in terms of spectators and fans. And, I hope we get the opportunity to go back. The community loves us. We love them. It's a great relationship. The fact they've supported the tour, man, what a great relationship to have formed with, Chester, Westwood, Lake Almanor, Foxwood, that whole area. So supportive of bass fishing.
Well, I think right there, everybody, if you're listening right now, Colby Pearson just laid down the gauntlet. We're coming to Boardman, Oregon. We want to see 200, 300, 400, 500 fans out there in the stands. Come out, come support it, come see it. Because you know what? It's a good show we put on. What we do, the way we do it, the weigh-ins, everything. They're getting better every time. And you know what? These guys are amazing to watch. The attitudes, and the way they greet the fans, the way they're out there opening themselves up to everybody. Come out and see it at Boardman, Oregon. But right now, it is the end of the BAM Pod, man. We have done it. Colby was a great guest, man. We really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course, man. Super thankful for any opportunity to come on the BAM podcast. If anybody wanted to follow along on my journey, I always am super open with information and fishing that I'm doing. You can follow me on Instagram at Colby Pearson Fishing. I also have a Facebook page, and I'm starting a YouTube channel with some of this coverage. I'll do some updates and things like that, get you guys more fish on the water. Excited to be here, excited to teach everybody. Give me a follow. Let's just go on a tour of the West, catching all these big bass.
Well, so far, there's only been, I think, a couple sports teams out there that have been three-peaters. So can we lay down the gauntlet? Can we lay down the challenge right now? Colby Pearson, three-peated Boardman? What do you think, everybody? Let's see what he does. All right, well, thanks for tuning in to the BAM Pod. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with another great angler. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next show.